back, America. It's Hugh. My favorite economist, because he's been right the most and because he is always affable and upbeat and also makes it easy to understand and does not hide behind economist talk, is Brian Wesbury of First Trust's portfolio. He is their chief economist. He lives in Chicago, the poor man, but he goes out on the road with me occasionally, and he is sadly a Northwestern MBA, and I'm obliged to credit the Wildcats with that, and that makes Guy Benson and my daughter very happy. Brian, good to see you again, friend. How are you?
Hugh, as always, it's great to be with you. And yes, here I am. The snow is still 2 feet high in my backyard. I have to remind everybody that is one of the prices you pay for being in the great broke state of Illinois. Can't wait to get out. But
Well, I got to
Florida,
ask you.
Texas, they call.
I moved to Virginia, Brian, and I
Yep.
did so because of the time of my show, but also what a wonderful change to go from 13.5% to 5%. You're an economist. Why are you in Chicago?
I still have kids in high school. It's kind of hard
That's it.
to drag them out. One more year, and I'm out. So
That is exactly why we stay. Do not move children when they're happy unless you're a military family and know how to do it. Brian, I want to cover three things. The three B's. When Franklin Roosevelt was asked by his son Elliot how to speak, he said, be brief, the three B's. Be brief, be sincere, be seated. When I have Brian Wesbury on, I want to talk about Bitcoin, bonds, and bulls. First of all,
there you go.
Bitcoin. What is your advice to people about Bitcoin?
Yeah. So, all right, Hugh. This is first of all, I'm a hard money man. All right. If that, you almost have to go back 100 years to really understand what that means because we forgot this. So when we were on a gold standard, a bimetal standard, gold and silver standard, that's hard money. You can't manipulate the amount of gold in the economy. And so from its underneath of Bitcoin is it's a private money. You can't create any more than 21 million of them. And as a result, it is the hardest money ever. It's not like gold where they can, run to Siberia and find more, run to Alaska and find more. Bitcoin, once you've mined all of this, it's done. So therefore, the theoretical idea of having a perfect private money that can't be manipulated, I love. That's the first thing to understand.
And that's the
Here's
first surprise. I am surprised by Brian Wesbury saying that. Please continue.
yeah, but here's the deal. Will it ever become money? And that's the question. And so for example, and I think this is the key point. If we were on a Bitcoin standard in 2020 and the government had to issue $3 trillion worth of bonds to accommodate the crazy pandemic spending that we did, they would have had to issue all those bonds to the public. The Federal Reserve could not have printed more Bitcoin and bought the bonds. In other words, there's no way we would ever have been able to do a $3 trillion deficit last year and a $3.5 trillion deficit this year if we were on a Bitcoin standard. And as a result, my belief is the government will never allow it to become money.
Do you know,
And that's the key thing.
when I sat down with Mark Zuckerberg at dinner, I asked him why he wanted to replace the dollar as a reserve currency, and he professed that he wasn't interested in replacing the dollar as a reserve currency. And
Right.
Ross Douthout and I said, well, it sure looks that way because Bitcoin is a threat to the dollar. And you're saying
Right.
the government will never allow it to be a threat to the dollar.
That's exactly right. And one of the reasons they let it exist today is they treat every buy and sell as a financial transaction. So if you bought a Bitcoin, let's say at $10,000, sell it at 40, you have a $30,000 capital gain. By the way, if you bought a Bitcoin at 10,000 and you went and traded it for a $40,000 Tesla, you would still owe a $30,000 capital gain. So this is not a currency, and that's the thing for everyone to remember. And so what people talk about when if you really listen to the Bitcoin supporters closely, what they'll say is because Bitcoin is so we can move it so rapidly in nanoseconds, and it is truly efficient. The blockchain technology, which allows us to transfer this underneath, is a brilliant advance in computing technology. And so what they say is we'll take our dollars, convert them to Bitcoin, transfer the Bitcoin, convert them to euros, and you can send money in nanoseconds around the world. Well, here's the deal. You don't need the Bitcoin to do that. You can blockchain anything. So it could be any of the other coins, Ethereum, Ripple, Litecoin, or they could create a digital dollar to do the same thing. I just hear there's two kinds of supporters for Bitcoin. One, it says this is going to be what we use to move money around the world. We'll see. You can use anything.
Exit question, Brian. I advised people on the web yesterday. I'm not an economist. I'm not a professional investor like you are, like First Trust. I didn't stay at a Holiday Inn. But I remember one thing: if you don't understand it, don't buy it. And I
Right.
believe that a lot of people are buying Bitcoin who do not understand it.
I totally agree. And then there are people that know that it sits on blockchain. That gives it, this technology has real value. Don't get, we all have to understand that. But it's the Bitcoin itself. It's not going to become a money because the government will never allow it. Does that mean it won't go higher before it goes to zero? And will it actually go to zero? Can we use but all I'm saying is it there are people out there that sell it on the idea that it's a private money. And like I said, if it really was our money, I would be happy. But the government will never let it be.
Now, Brian, you're the only person I would even attempt to do this. The bond market is in terrible fluctuation. The interest rate,
Right.
the 10-year interest rate, has more than doubled in a month.
Right.
And
Yep.
so I need you to explain the bond market and what's going on and why it impacts people in 2 minutes or less so we can get to the bull case.
Yes, exactly. Well, let's first of all, when the government spends money, that's not inflation. What is inflation is when the government prints money. And if we look over this past year, unfortunately, the Federal Reserve has been buying the treasury bonds that we are now using to give to businesses, to people to spend. And as a result, the money supply is exploding. And then on top of that, we have another 1.9 trillion of spending. And the question is, how much of that is the Fed Reserve going to buy? And right now, it looks like less than half. And that means the government has to go into the bond market and issue $1 trillion worth of bonds. At the same time, Germany and Italy and Japan and countries all over the world are issuing bonds, and the market is having indigestion. It can't take all this debt. At the same time, the money supply that the Federal Reserve is printing is making people fearful of inflation. Just look at copper, aluminum, oil, lumber, corn, wheat, soybeans. All of those prices are going up, and so what we're seeing is fear of inflation start to lift interest rates, and that's a real danger for the future. We're going to have more inflation. The money supply is exploding, and with that, we're going to have higher interest rates as well. So lock in your mortgages now, because in the next 3 to 5 years, I think interest rates are going to go up significantly.
So now the final question. We're about to spend, as you said, $1.9 trillion that we're just printing.
Right.
What
Yep.
will this do? It's more money chasing the same amount of stock, although there are
Right.
new issues. Are you a bull or a bear on Wall Street?
Yeah, right now I'm a bull, Hugh, and I will tell you I do this with one caveat, and that is that I'm a near term to near medium term bull. And that's because, believe it or not, the market is still undervalued. We're going to have record corporate profits in 2021. And even though interest rates have gone up, they're still very low, and interest rates are a key component of what stocks are worth. The lower yields are, the more earnings are worth in the future, if that makes sense. So if you have 10% interest rates and you earn $1 in 3 years, or you tell me you will, that's worth a lot less to me than if interest rates are 1.5 to 2. So with low interest rates, lots of money printing, all kinds of borrowing from the future to spend today, we're going to see the stock market, and plus vaccines rolling out, the virus is dying of its own accord anyway. And so 2021, it's going to be a great year for equities. The worry I have is that as inflation rises, as interest rates go up, as we have to start paying back all of this money that we're borrowing, we're going to see much slower long term growth in the US. And that's when equity markets get hurt. So this year, I'm a bull.
So,
As we move into the years ahead, I'm less so.
exit question, Brian Wesbury. Do you believe Team Trump got the credit that they deserve for the economic rebound that is going to occur? And do you believe that by the time 2024 rolls around, Team Biden will have done enough damage to the economy that the case will be able to be made for a return to Trump/Reagan economics?
Yeah, Hugh, I think so. Like, first of all, if you go back to February, we had fewer people in poverty than we've seen since really we tracked it on any kind of close basis.
February
Uh,
2020. February
yeah,
2020. Yeah.
Yes, February 2020, and then we shut down for the pandemic. In my opinion, history is not going to look kindly on those shutdowns. The damage done to especially young people not in school, mental health, physical health. People aren't getting checked for cancer, heart disease, all of these things. The damage done from we've destroyed millions of small businesses in this country, and that pain is going to be felt for a long time. I don't think we will ever, under the policies that are being put in place today and being talked about over the next couple of years under the Biden administration, there is no way we're going to get back to the vibrancy that we saw back in January, February, the end of 2019, the early part of 2020. And so as a result, I do believe, just like Jimmy Carter, people are going to look at this economy and go, something is wrong. And that's when we changed in the late 70s in 1980 to Ronald Reagan. And I believe, I don't know whether it will be President Trump back again, but I believe we will have a Reagan-esque candidate on the ballot in 2024, and that candidate will have a very, very good chance of winning.
You defended free markets yesterday. I was so glad for you to see that because wokeism wants to kill the case for free markets. And Brian Wesbury is out there arguing, do not be shamed into not defending the
Right.
greatest wealth creation, poverty ending system the world has ever seen.
Right, exactly. I tweeted yesterday. It was sort of like with you in the back of my mind, with Rush in the back of my mind. One of the great things about Rush Limbaugh, God rest his soul, that I thought he did was he told people not to be ashamed of this. And for if we go back to when he started, it was Walter Cronkite, it was the ABC, CBS, NBC. Those were the people that were in our living room every night, and they started to make people feel shamed if they believed in free market capitalism. And Rush was able to articulate why we shouldn't. And so I tweeted yesterday, "Hey, look, if you believe in the Constitution, and if you believe in free speech, if you believe in small government, if you think 1.9 trillion dollars is too much spending, don't be afraid to say it, because you're not an insurrectionist if you believe that. You understand the world history, and world history says capitalism and free markets are the best system to lift people out of poverty."
Brian Wesbury, good to see you again. Follow Brian at Wesbury, Wesbury, and go to First Trust Portfolio if you want more on what his economic predictions are. Brian, good to see you. Stay warm in Chicago, buddy. One
Thanks,
year to
Hugh.
go, and then you can flee to Florida or
Yes.
someplace else that doesn't take all your money. I'll